Julia. Again, Julia has offered to help me because I am just not the most tech savvy person. And so she is helping with all of that. Cassandra, I saw your
Hey
wonderful
there.
hand. Jump in.
It's wonderful to meet you. I just figured I'd mention it really quick just because with the previous Padlet that we were in, they were running into issues where people were taking over the screen and putting on really inappropriate stuff.
I
So if
heard.
there's any chance that you could turn off the screen share for everybody, that'd be amazing.
Thank you for letting me know. I did hear rumors about that, and I have turned it off even before all the drama started. So I
Thank
am
you.
hoping, yes, it just adds a little drama. So, all right. So, welcome everybody. I am gonna go. Actually, I will wait a few minutes before I put the handout into the chat box. But it is my best hopes for our 55 minutes here together that this is very interactive. I want to welcome people to pop things into the chat box, to unmute, to jump in. My vision for today is to hear a little bit about your vision for our time together. And then I want to share some slides, not very many, and then go back to discussion and sharing all together. So, a little bit about why I picked this topic about what does it mean to be not knowing is I actually was good friends with Insu Kim Berg and Steve DeShazer. I met them in the early 90s. And one of my favorite things that Steve DeShazer used to always do is he used to always say that when we're stuck, we need to always go back to the basics. And he believed there was no such thing as advanced solution focused practice. And it was very common that he would just invite us to take a topic that we had been talking about often, and he would say, well, let's just revisit, right? And I also think about the childhood game of telephone. Now, keep in mind, I don't know how international that game of telephone was. So let me just share with you what it is. It's this childhood game that one child would whisper a fact to the next child, and that child would then whisper the fact to the next child, and it would go all the way down this line. And then we would find out how accurate or not accurate the fact was by the time it got to the last child, right? Well, solution focused practice was actually developed through an international game of telephone, which is a wonderful thing, right? And as this model got developed, Steve DeShazer again would invite us to stop and to look at the original intent so that people at the end of the chain could make an informed decision on how they wanted to view whatever concept it is. So that is my best hope for our time together, that I invite everyone to be curious, not focus so much on how you do it, but let's take a look at the original intent and then ask yourself, in this preferred future, what will you do with the information that we talk about today? So, foundational to the original way of thinking about solution focused practice was this phrase, this not knowing stance. We'll talk a little bit about the history of that. But I want everyone just to think for a moment and feel free to use the thumbs up or the thumbs down or your real thumb to show me in real time about how easy is it for you to be in the not knowing stance. Like thumbs up if it's super easy, you live your life that way. Thumbs down, it's like, oh, I always have opinions about things. Oh, saw some quick thumbs down, some thumbs up, any place in between, some crooked thumbs. All right. For some of us, I'm going to be honest with you, I've got a lot of opinions. And I tend to think that my opinions are amazing, right? And this is one of the many, many reasons why I was so attracted to this model because it forces me to be a better human, to challenge myself, to challenge my idea that my opinion is a really helpful thing, right? So I want you to think for a moment, for those of you who weren't straight up thumbs up, maybe you were sideways, maybe you were twitchy thumb, maybe you were downwards thumb, what kind of things get in your way of the not knowing stance? Anybody willing to share? Cassandra?
I always like to say that there's two sides to every story. So kind of like what you mentioned with the game of telephone, right? Is like you hear one thing, but then it could be different for another. So it's really just for me, I like to know what things are around before even coming up with the knowledge of like
Hmm.
what comes through it. Oh, sorry. 1 second. Sorry, that was my supervisor. He's I'm in placement. Anyway,
Yeah.
long story short, essentially I like to know a little bit more about something before giving an opinion.
Yeah. Nice. Now, my apologies on pronunciation of names. I'm just going to say I'm probably going to get it wrong. L- Lizallo?
Is it me?
Yes, it is you. I clearly did not pronounce your name correctly. My apologies.
No problem because you have the right to pronounce a foreign name the way you want.
Ah, you're
So
very generous.
yes, okay. Just I think that to me it is so the default mode is to come from a place of knowing.
Hmm.
Maybe because of our or my upbringing.
Yeah.
So in school, we were supposed to know everything,
Hmm.
or the more you knew, the better grades you got. So
Yes.
you had to know a lot and even more to go to university and PhD and so on and so forth. So knowledge was power, so to say. But of course,
Mm.
that changed with Google and with all that stuff that is coming up right now. So it's not really that. And one definition of coaching might be the art of not knowing. So
Yeah.
you may do an art that is about not knowing, and but we or at least I come from a place where I should know everything, but of
Hmm.
course I have to let go of my knowledge in order to be
Yeah.
present. And of course the client knows more than you about his own topic.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. So our own pressure that we should know, but then there's also the pressure from the client that they come to us hoping we know. Andrea or Andrea?
Good morning. Yeah, what a beautiful topic. I work in child protection, and we often, well, we often get a lot of information provided to us and provided by others, and I think that's sometimes a bit of a challenge in terms of muting, muting the kind of the loud voices that fill your head with kind of some information and biases as well. So it is really important to be intentional about our not knowing stance because we are kind of sometimes, well, I would call it persuaded, to think a certain way, especially when we're dealing with risk. So yeah, it's yeah, really important to be intentional about the not knowing stance.
Yes. Very good point. Abby?
Hi, following from Andrea, like I work in a clinical setting. And one of the things that's the hardest for the people that I'm training in my organization is we come with a lot of clinical, like therapy, occupational therapists, physiotherapists, and a lot of experience of, well, I've seen this happen so many times. I really
Mhm.
know what the next best thing is, and that self-regulation that we need to just make sure that we're really listening first
Yeah.
to what's wanted from the family and not rush in and say, you need to do this, because I know
Mhm.
it will help you further down the road. Um, uh, we need to kind of get that picture first before we start
Yeah.
sharing and ask permission to share that kind of technical piece.
Yes. And I love that word curiosity. I always say we cannot be curious and think we know at the same time. Those concepts are completely incompatible. As soon as I have an idea, I turn off my brain, right? James?
Hi from New Zealand.
Hi.
Yes, I'd like to just echo what you were saying regarding expectations that clients have of us to know what we're doing, or
Mhm.
to provide advice. And I have come across that, of course, and I've had to go, oh, let's explore. There's
Yeah.
no necessarily straightforward answer to that, and I guess it's just as you're saying about curiosity. If I come from a knowing stance, I don't know whether I would necessarily be curious. Whether, of course, coming from a not knowing stance, then I can kind of explore their world a bit more and tease things out and do a lot more work, I would say. So, um, and of course, it causes me a lot of anxiety if I'm, well, some level of anxiety now these days, but if I don't know what's happening, but then I've learned to become more used to the not knowing, but it still needs a little bit more work, but it's good that
Yes, it
thank you
is
for this
tough.
workshop. So
Yes, my
yeah.
pleasure. Jeff, and then we're going to pull up some slides and then go back to talking. Jeff?
Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, lots I could say on this, but I think one barrier I have to not knowing is that
Mhm.
I work in crisis center where we start the day each morning with rounds about
Yeah.
what's going on with everybody, what are their presenting problems and so on. And then I spend a lot of my time doing assessments where the first question is not what are your best hopes. The first question
Mhm.
is what's wrong, basically. Presenting problem. Um, so I'm trying to find my way to navigate around this, to actually not go in with preconceived ideas. I also find that to the degree that I can take a not knowing stance, it requires trust that the session will produce whatever is needed rather than going in with some kind of agenda. And I guess one other thing I'll add is I do have a lot of patients who are asking me, what should I do? Teach me some coping skills. And I struggle with that kind of through the SFBT frame. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. I have a lot of clients as well that come in and say, tell me what to do, give me some tools. And I always say, the secret is, do I believe that I have tools? Do I believe that I know what's right for them? Because if I believe I know what's right for them, then I can get sucked right into that and pull up the power differential and start handing out what I learned in school. But if I keep a low power differential, if I believe in my heart that I know nothing about what's right for you, I still can use language that is supportive of my client. So when they come in and say, I need you to tell me what to do, I always respond with their words and say, I'm happy to make sure you leave knowing what to do. Did everyone hear that I didn't say I would tell you what to do? I said, I'll make sure you leave knowing what to do because that's all they care about. And then I say, can I ask you some questions so you leave with the best advice? I have never had a client say, no, just give me the wrong advice. I don't care. They're not going to do that. And once they say, yes, please ask me anything, I need the right advice, guess what I do? Just a solution focused conversation. And throughout that conversation, the most amazing answers surface. And if they're wanting me to give something to them, if I'm going to respect the client's language and keep a low power differential, I could say, oh, gosh, that's even better than something I could have told you, right? And sort of highlight everything that they say. And at the end, I can say, so what is this advice you're leaving with? And then they repeat it all back. Now, the interesting thing is oftentimes the client leaves and thinks I told them what to do. And I'm okay with that initially if it gives them comfort. But between all of us, I didn't tell them anything. right? And that's that perfect matching. So if it's okay, I would like to just go over a few slides, not a whole bunch. I did put the slides into the chat box just so you have them as a reference, but I don't want to spend a lot of time with me talking. Then I want to open it up and have you guys talk about the concepts. And again, I'm not telling you this as what you should do. I'm telling you from these slides based on the original message I heard from the mouth of Insu and Steve. And the beauty of solution focused is it changes, it morphs. So we've already talked about this idea of curiosity. Really encourage everyone to stay in curiosity mode, even during our time together. Because again, if we keep focusing on this is how I do it, we'll miss the magic of learning a different way. So this was my answers that I came up with that I just sort of brainstormed when I asked myself the question. Many of these have already been said. We're expected to know, right? I hold a master's degree. I have been a therapist now for over 35 years. I accept money for a fee for the services that I give. I'm expected to know what I'm doing. We are taught to teach skills and tools. All of this is part of the problem-focused model. I also work with a lot of different professionals that use problem-focused models. And if a client can go somewhere else and be taught something that feels more comfortable than turning on their brains, which is what solution-focused is all about. But as I already told you, I'm already a human that has a lot of opinions. And then here in the United States and in many places, there's been a shift towards social justice, which is a really good thing. And we'll talk about how that can sometimes send some mixed messages. So let's talk about social justice stance, right? So here are just a few quotes that are out there that I think are very important, but from the social justice lens. If you're neutral in situations of injustice, you've chosen the side of the oppressor. Even from Albert Einstein, if I were to remain silent, I'd be guilty of complicity. And I'm just telling you, as a social worker, I want none of that. I never want to take the side of the oppressor. I don't want to be complicit to some of the horrible things that have been happening. And in social justice, there's this very strong message that by not having an opinion, and more importantly, by not having a value-based opinion, it can now be viewed negatively by some. And this thinking is now creeped into solution-focused arenas. And I've actually heard solution-focused practitioners say that it is unethical to have a not knowing stance. And this is why I'm so passionate about this subject. So let's go back to the person that I originally heard this phrase from, my friend Insu Kim Burke. So she was always quoting Anderson and Gulishan. I'm pretty sure I didn't say that name correctly either. And in that 1992 publication, talks about the client is the expert and each human being is unique. This idea of promoting agency, that is what Insu originally was talking about when she talked about the not knowing stance. Now, this concept can also be used in problem-focused models as well. It can be used as a tool or technique, and many therapists, while they use the tool, still have an agenda, but just choose not to share it, which can appear to be very disingenuous. Now, I coined the term the neutral stance when Yvonne Dolan and I wrote my very first book in 2003. This was way before the term neutral had a very different definition in social justice. But the reason that I really liked the tool and the term neutral stance is because it helped us to move away from this idea of the neutral stance as being, or the not knowing stance as being a tool, something we do to somebody. But instead, when we refer to the neutral stance, it's a way of thinking. And this was just a word that Yvonne and I used to try to help people better understand what we both heard from Insu. So let's take a look at what are some definitions of neutral, right? So in social justice, the term neutral is a very negative connotation. It's turning a blind eye. It's back to that being complicit. That is not what I'm talking about at all in solution focused when I use the term neutral. Instead, I want you to think of physics, right? Remember what physics says. For every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction. Okay. And if a client comes in and they're really negative, they're really, really struggling, the opposite and equal reaction that gets triggered within us is to become positive, to cheerlead, to try to fix, to try to take over. It can result in a very high power differential as I essentially tell the client, you are wrong. It doesn't have to be this way. Things can be better. Everybody hear the bias, right? So in solution, and you might think, well, what's the big deal, right? If I become positive, if I become strength-based, but keep in mind what physics will say. If I become positive, if I start cheerleading, what does physics say is going to get triggered? What's the opposite and equal reaction of being positive? This is actually how you entrench negativity into your clients. So this not knowing stance or this term neutral is all about not getting triggered. So we don't put ourselves in a position of fighting with our clients. So if our client says things are horrible, things will never get better. They're really negative. But if I'm not going to react, if I'm going to stay neutral, that allows me to go into a place of compassion. Oh my gosh, you must have a good reason for showing up. What are you hoping that might be better as a result? Does everybody hear how it's compassionate, but is not becoming positive and cheerleading? Okay. So some criticisms that I keep hearing. Again, that confusion with the social justice definition. I want everyone to hear it's a very different definition. Some people have said, well, it's not humanly possible to be neutral, or the clients won't feel validated, right? So let me respond to some of these. I already responded to the one about social justice. Let's talk about this idea it's not possible to be neutral. I want everyone to think about those of you who meditate. I personally love meditating. I am horrible at it, but that is not the point. But I love the similarities to meditation. Is the goal of meditation to never have a thought? No, that would be dead. The goal of meditation is simply to become aware when a thought arises, to acknowledge it, right? And to set it aside without judgment. Oh, there's a thought. Not helpful right now. I want to stay focused, right? So with the term of being neutral, the goal is not to never have an opinion. That would be impossible, right? But similar to meditation, it's just to notice, oh, if that was me, I would just stop using drugs. And then to realize, but it's not me. And let's refocus on what is right for this human being. So how I personally do this is I have an imaginary basket that I set at the foot of my chair. And when all my amazing, great ideas that would save the world come into my mind, I just take them and say, if I ever have a problem with that, this is what I will do. I take the idea and I put it into my imaginary basket. So in my mind, I have the answers to all my future problems. But it also reminds me that while these answers are valuable to me, none of them are helpful for my clients. Because in solution focus, we have to be genuinely curious. So to me, this not knowing stance is a way of being. It's a belief that I can't be curious and think I know at the same time. It forces me to get rid of all jargons. I don't know what depression means. I don't know what happy means. And I definitely don't know what a resource means or strengths means, or if it's even helpful at all. So when I'm in the stance, I try to get rid of all of that, including being positive. So how do we do this, right? This is a really tall order. So we have to remember Inzu Kim Berg and Steve DeShazer were social workers, and the foundational way of thinking is systemic, right? So I'm just going to do the picture instead. So everyone's very familiar with systems, right? Here's the human being in front of us that we're talking to, but none of us are an island. We all have all kinds of people in these rings. So here's our inner circle, those we trust the most. Might be family of choice. It might be a dog, right? This ring here are the more formal systems, but is not the formal system we work within. I want you to really invite you to think about that this is like if it's a child, this might be the school system. If a person is employed, this might be the employer. If they're receiving public benefits, it might be the administrator of the public benefits. If they have medical issues, this might be the medical community. Now, this community ring is all the odds and ends of people we run into. So, like on this call right here, I've got 60 community members with me, some of whom I've met before, many of whom I don't know anything about, but we're all in the same room together. We're influencing each other, our way of thinking. Now, when we as professionals start working with a client, this last ring forms that I call regulation. That is where all of the baggage that comes with my credentials, with my organization, right? Somebody mentioned earlier that they have to ask all these questions. That's a requirement of the job. All of that is in regulation. Now, if we are in the neutral or the not knowing stance, I'm going to invite you personally to be outside of the system. I don't know what's right for my client. I don't have any opinion. Sometimes I have to step into regulation and make a statement of fact, something that my agency requires, but it's not something I personally believe. It's something that we have to do in order for us to work together. But ultimately, in solution focused, I don't know what's right for you. I don't know if you should stop using drugs or not. I don't know if what you should do to help with your anxiety. All of my questions are out here. Now, working from this place requires self-awareness and growth. And that's what I meant about one of the many things I love about this model is it forces me to be a better human, even on the days I don't feel like being a better human. And as Insu Kim Berg used to say, this model is so simple, but it is by far one of the hardest models to learn to do well because it takes discipline to learn to stay this simple, to really believe that I don't have any answers for my clients. I oftentimes describe there's two sides of the road when I work with people. The client is the expert on who they are, what works, what they want. I am the expert on the process, on asking questions that will make the client think differently. We must stay in our own lane. One more concept, and then I'm going to send you off to groups so you can just discuss and explore these ideas that I'm talking about. We all know about presuppositions, right? Now, presuppositions, we all bring beliefs into our conversations. They show up through their language choices. Now, the presuppositions is actually things that we believe without having any proof from the unique human being we're working from. So it's our bias information that comes into the room. We always have that. Okay. And I want to challenge you to start listening for them, to start using them to help catch places where we are becoming biased and to use them to learn to set your opinions aside. So, as a quick example, This first sentence is how I would word something when I am in what I'm calling the neutral or not knowing stance. What's in parentheses is how I was trained to ask the question, and I'll point out the presupposition in both. So, working with a client who's struggling with substances, I might ask, so what role will alcohol have in your life when things are working for you? So let's listen for the presupposition of the solution-focused question. Alcohol may or may not be in your life. That's up to you. That's the presupposition. Now, how I was trained to do it in a problem-focused world would be, so what would recovery look like? Everyone hear the presupposition? You're not in recovery right now. Using alcohol is not part of recovery. How about this one? This is one for domestic violence. If I'm going to ask it in a not knowing way, I might say, so in this future place, who will be there? How I was trained in a problem-focused way to ask the question is, how would you know you're ready to leave? Do you hear the presupposition in the problem-focused one? You should leave. You're just not ready yet. This isn't a good place for you. But I still had a presupposition in my solution-focused question as well, right? There is a future place. There will be people there. I don't know who. Let's do one more. In this future place, would you do that again, or would you do something different? This is one that I love when other people are using strength-based model. They think, oh, if I can uncover strengths, I can encourage you to do it in the future, right? Solution-focused, if I'm going to stay neutral, the presupposition is, yes, there is a future place. I have no idea what you're doing when it works. It might be the same thing that you just did, but it might be something else. The problem-focused question would be, how would you get yourself to do that again? Everybody hear the presupposition? The right thing is to do this again. All right. I appreciate everybody letting me just throw information at you. Julia, let's make some rooms. And what I want everyone to do is talk amongst yourself. What was helpful? What are your thoughts? What did you like? What did you not like? Share with each other in your groups. We're going to take about, let's take about 8 minutes and then come back. So here we go. Thanks again for your help, Julia. Oh, you're muted. I'm missing all those good words.
Absolutely.
Some people, as soon as they hear we're doing breakouts, they're like, I'm out.
Yeah.
I want to make sure some of those people are not sitting by themselves, though. Looks like room 15 and 13. The other person hasn't joined yet. I wonder if we should put 15 and 13 together. Oh,
Right. Oh,
Shirley, I was just noticing you were sitting by yourself, and I was just going to fix that.
All is good.
Yeah, but we can talk here too.
Yeah.
But actually, what do you think about me moving you to another room where I think there's one other person? Are you up for that, Shirley? Do you know how to get
Always.
yourself back in the room?
Yeah, always.
All right.
How to get
So if you,
myself there now, but I will get, I don't
oh,
know how to come back here.
actually, I think your person just joined us here. I think we should just have a group here
Yeah.
because some people are coming back here when their partner didn't show up. So for those of you who are here with me, I want to know what stood out. What fit? What didn't? Talk to me. Talk to each other, more importantly. I don't need to talk. Jump in.
I think the most interesting part for me is always what happens when I tell someone, when someone says, why aren't you telling me what to do? Or why aren't you, you know, and I say, what's right for me is not right for you, or not necessarily right for you, which is what it usually means. It always
Mhm.
confuses people. Like, what do you mean? Right? We all know that, but somehow people don't know that.
Yeah.
So when you said it, I smiled to myself because I'm like, yeah, I wish more people could, could carry that easy.
Yeah.
I was thinking about, you were talking about presuppositions, Terry, and I was thinking that it also takes discipline to choose the solution focus presupposition because they can look so close. There's a lot of
Yes.
nuance to in choosing the presuppositions sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Because
still, I mean, you've been doing it 30 years. I've not been doing it 30 years. And so I'm still always tweaking my own mind. It
Mhm.
makes me a better person.
Yeah. We always are sending a message. And if we can stop and ask, what's the hidden message in the question?
Hmm.
That can help us decide, is that the hidden message you wanted to send? Because again, we're always sending a hidden message,
Hmm.
right?
Especially when we don't want to.
Yes. But we're always sending hidden messages.
Yeah.
And if we're not on our game, it will be a biased message.
Yeah.
It's always bias. You just need
That's
to
true.
choose your biases.
That's very good point, Shirley. Very good point. Yes. So maybe the solution focus is how do we choose the bias that allows the client to choose the path,
Mm,
right?
mm.
So there's still the bias that the client will choose.
And there is the bias that there is a future state and
Mhm.
that there are options that we're not seeing yet. There are a lot of biases there,
There's a lot of biases.
but I think the very idea of choosing a bias is challenging.
Mhm. Yep. And to me, that not knowing stance is my bias is I don't know which path is right for you, but I know you have a path, right?
Mhm.
Hi. Um,
Yeah.
hey, yeah, I was sorry, I've been doing work and listening at the same time, so I've kind of dropped in and out. I think when we assume that the clients are the experts, then whether they know what the solution is or whether they don't know what the solution is or whether they're expecting us to have the answer, I think we're still looking for what outcome are you looking for. So if I
Mhm.
did have an answer that solved all your problems, and I may not, but let's assume that I did, what difference would that make to you? And then we look at the differences and work towards those and what parts of those differences are already happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. I love that. Other thoughts? I'm trusting you're watching the time, Julia.
You know what? I was just thinking, who's
We
watching the
forgot them.
time? Yes, we did. It has not been 8 minutes, though. I don't know how many minutes, but I
That's
would say
okay.
they probably have at least a couple more.
Okay. Okay. Other thoughts about anything? I've been talking way more than I need to be talking.
I would love you to do a workshop just on presuppositions.
Ah, presuppositions are amazing. Yes. Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah. A lot of the transcript work will catch presuppositions, because in the moment it's a lot going on. It's really hard to be in the moment with our clients and remember what we said and listen to what they just said all at the same time. But when we can do transcripts and look at utterance by utterance and really look at, I look at my utterance because I want to know what was my presupposition in my utterance, and then look at their response. Steve DeShazer used to always say, we never know what we asked until we hear the client's response. If I'm looking for presupposition, it can be helpful to look at both, right? Because I can look at the word choices and it will point out my bias, right? And then I can say, is that a bias that I can feel good about? Like what Shirley was talking about, that yes, there is a future, or you will have support, you will have people. Or was my bias that you should leave this person? And that's something that I have no right to say. What do you think? Should we bring, oh, yes. Do you have a thought? I just saw you
No, I'm just
unmute.
thank you. It's just a really good reminder to do that and reflect on, oh, I didn't that the reason why that person answered in that way is because I asked the question.
Yes,
My presupposition. Yeah, very good. Thank you for the reminder.
yes. There's no such thing as a difficult person, right? Steve DeShazer used to always say that, clients are doing their best to be helpful, right? And so oftentimes when they seem to be resistant, they're just telling us we're going the wrong direction.
Ooh.
Right? And if we can listen to their feedback in that way, then we can learn from them. All right. People are coming back. All right. Some of the people may have left because I made them talk to other people. But I am glad everyone is back. I want to know, what did you learn? What came up? What insight? What questions? All of that. What came up in your breakout rooms? Who would be willing to share so we can all benefit? Anybody? Oh, here comes some more. I may have spoken too soon. All right, welcome back. So feel free. I want to hear what you guys talked about in your breakout rooms. Was there an aha moment? Was there a what the heck moment? Who would be willing to share? Anybody?
Oh,
Yes.
sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, James, and then we'll get to Cassie.
Oh, okay, Cassie can go first. She put her hand up. So,
She has
oh,
outvoted you, James.
all right. Well, it was interesting. I mean, of course, you've got to introduce each other and all that. That's always good to get to know each other in the breakout rooms, as well as just discussing what we do. Also, I guess talking about the stances and coming from a not knowing stance and how that can be a challenge, and also. I guess, starting with, oh, what are your best tips from us talking? I guess even using scaling questions and having celebrations at the end of the counseling and on the journey for a client, say, and like going and seeing them go. I enjoy seeing clients go from A to B, basically from being in a certain psychological, emotional state where they might be depressed or so forth, and then transitioning to somewhere another state that they prefer or would maybe not necessarily expect them to be at. So, and using scaling questions to celebrate that. So what makes it a 10, what
Nice.
makes it a 9, what makes it an 8 or so forth. And yeah, we didn't really go into, I don't think we really talked about the questions as such, presuppositional
That's okay.
language or but I did find, of course, the challenge. I was reflecting on it and going, oh, I've actually tried to encourage people to continue with such a thing. But the questions, the examples you gave around, like, for example, domestic violence. So in your future, who would be there? And then, or, kind of not assuming that I need to get them out of the situation. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Nice. Thank you.
so.
Cassie?
Sorry, James, I had to put you on the spot just because you breathed the first breath. So, but I would say that it was a very fruitful conversation because we ended up like discussing essentially like the different perspectives on on the idea of not knowing, how there's benefits, and then how it may not always present easy for everyone, or like how it might not suit like a certain client because sometimes they want that familiarity. But overall, with the solution focused, even being in a high school and me being in placement, as I said, I only got like 3 or 4 months to bond with these kiddos. And sometimes you may not always get to see them. So it's like, when they come into the office, they may like, what can I do for them in that brief amount of time that I will be able to have with them? Because we won't be able to have that building relationship. So this type of model is really helpful, not only to them, but also to me being able to care for them in a way that's not judgmental, that's not um, coming from a knowing lens, but rather one that like they will be able to connect with me and I will be able to connect with them.
Yeah. Nice. Brigitte, I know you put your hand down, but I still am happy to see your face and love to hear your voice.
So one thing that we talked about is there's a set of beliefs,
Mhm.
and sometimes people would say to me, "Oh, you believe in your approach," and I say, "No, I don't believe in my approach. I have proof, like it's evidence-based, etc. There's some research, but it's true that there are some beliefs that go with those techniques,
Yes.
but it's difficult to teach that
Yeah.
without looking like a preacher. Like, okay, like let's join our hands and pray. I believe in this, and I do. So, do you have
Mhm.
insights about like it's a set of beliefs, what you're
Mhm.
talking about, and it's really interesting the way you present
Yeah.
it.
I always go back to the core principles that Insoo and Steve wrote about. So in each of my books, I always recite the principles because to me, that is the measuring stick that I always say, am I operating within these core principles? If I am not, I'm not so sure it's solution focused. If I am, then that's how I determine that, right? So, for example, the problem and the solution are not necessarily connected, is a key principle, right? That helps with the not knowing stance, that the problem is not always present. That is a belief that makes me curious about something else. But that handful of core principles is something that helps me determine is what I do. I don't know.
Mhm.
Jeff?
So I received some feedback yesterday from my supervisor, and he said, because I was feeling pretty discouraged about my role, and he said, he told me, you seem to be able to get information out of people that none of the other therapists are getting. And it just kind of clicked for me right now that I think
Yes.
if that's true, I think the reason probably is because when I go to rounds and I hear, oh, this patient is a real train wreck and this one is a little shit and all this stuff, I'm
Mhm.
just thinking to myself, well, let me find out for myself. And and then when I go to meet with that person, I don't carry that with me. I just find out from them like, well, who thought it would be a good idea for you to come here? How did you end up in this place? and I just get to know them from scratch and get it without carrying the story in with me about who everybody else thinks they are, what's wrong with them. And when I'm able to do that, they open up so much more. And they tell me all kinds of things that they're not telling other people.
I love that. What an amazing compliment from your supervisor.
Yeah.
Nice. What else came up in the groups that you'd like to share? I love hearing from all of you.
Shirley, did you still want to ask your question or make your comment?
Did I miss Shirley?
Just something that came to mind, and always come to my mind when I talk about or listen to solution focus. When we think we know what is best for someone else, we kind of come to we get into the superhero position. Everybody who knows me know I'm a geek, right? So my stance on that, there is a monologue in Supergirl where she said, we don't need to be heroes, we need to be partners. And she goes into a longer speech that I won't waste your time on, but every time I'm like, if I could play that 2 minute monologue to every therapy student on the face of the earth, I think we would all be doing a much better job.
Yes.
Right? But still, if I can, I'll just tell you to go look for it. It's in the last episode of the series, season 6, last episode, right at the beginning.
Nice.
But it really represents everything to me because like, I'm not flying around saving people. Not my job. Also can't fly, but not my job.
Nice. I always say our job as a solution-focused therapist is to turn the client's brain on. That's it. It's not to teach them what to think, but just to turn their brain on. And that presupposition in that is that they are capable of having the thoughts that are right for them. Suzanne?
And how lovely to use your imaginary basket for turning their brains on.
Yes.
I love that because it will be full of my own clever thoughts and judgment, actually. So I love that idea. And I will also use it in training because that could be a super good PowerPoint slide, and I will put your name in and maybe you sitting by the basket, or it's a good one. It's to make simple explanations and about complex stuff that needs a lot of awareness for us, and still we need some pictures and things to hold on, also in basic solution focused training. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Another way that I was just thinking that might be helpful is I listen for things that clients say to me in solution-focused conversations that in other models, the therapist would think, oh, yep, that's what you should do. So for example, I work a lot with clients who struggle with drugs and alcohol problems. So if my client says I should stop using methamphetamine, does everybody hear how the traditionally trained therapist would think, yes, that's it. Yes, you should stop using methamphetamine. So I listen for those, and those are the questions I get curious about. So the client says, I should stop using methamphetamine. I'm like, why? What lets you know that that would be right for you? See, they're not expecting me to question that. They're expecting me to immediately go to, okay, yes, so how did we get you to stop? Do you hear the presupposition? Yes, you finally got to the right answer. But my question to say, but why? What lets you know that that's right for you? Sends a really powerful message that I want to know what's right for you. I don't want you telling me what is the right answer or what you assume I'm listening for. Now, here in the United States, when I ask my clients, well, why would you want to stop using substances? Do you know what most of them tell me? Well, actually, I don't. Okay. See how now I have the honest human versus before They were just telling me what they thought the right answer was. And then I can say, okay, so what do you want? Well, I really want my mom off my back, or I really want to get my kids back. Ah, see, now I know what's at their heart, right? But if I had been in that knowing stance, of course you should stop using substances, I would have missed that. I would have stayed on the surface. Other thoughts? Oh, actually, we are out of time. Man, time just goes by so fast. Thank you so much for joining me. I just feel so honored to have you here and keep in touch. Hopefully, I'll see you guys around.
Thanks,
Bye.
Teri.
Good to see
You're
you, Terry.
welcome.
Thank
Thank you.
you
Bye-bye.
so
Thanks.
much, Terry, and have a wonderful day. It was wonderful to meet
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Wonderful to meet you as well. And
Thank you
thank you
so
so
much.
much, Julia.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
James.
Bye.
All right.
Bye. Julia, I couldn't have done this without